There is a town in Germany that exists for one reason only: to build the tools that kill men. No grand cathedral at its heart, no bustling market square, just a royal armory forging muskets for a king's wars. And in the winter of 1838, into a family that has known nothing but worked steel for generations, a 13th child is born. His name is Paul Mauser. His father stands at the royal benches. 6 of his brothers will become gunsmiths too. But Paul is different. At 12 years old, he steps onto the factory floor, and instead of learning the trade, he quietly begins rewriting it. He watches the machines when no one is looking. He sees what the older men have stopped seeing: every tolerance too loose, every mechanism too crude, every rifle a rough draft of something better. By the time he can hold an opinion, the opinion is total. Everything here could be built tighter, finer, more precise. Beside him stands his older brother, Wilhelm, steady, sharp with numbers, fluent in contracts and money. Where Paul sees metal, Wilhelm sees markets. One will perfect the weapon, the other will sell it to the world. Neither boy knows it yet, but together these two sons of a factory town will arm whole empires, and one day those very weapons will circle back to bury everything they ever built. At 20 years old, Paul Mauser is drafted into the army, and the army makes the worst mistake of its life. It hands him the keys. In 1859, he is posted to an arsenal at Ludwigsburg, a building that holds every weapon his kingdom owns. To his commanders, it is routine duty. To Paul, it is a library. He studies the breech loaders the way a surgeon studies a body, taking each one apart in his mind. He examines Prussia's pride, the needle gun, the rifle that loads from the rear instead of the muzzle. And he delivers a quiet verdict that will echo for the next 100 years. The idea is right, the execution is rotten. The firing needle is fragile and snaps under steady fire. The breech leaks gas straight back toward the shooter's face. The range is poor, the accuracy is worse. His officers spot his gift almost at once and send him home to the royal factory to keep working. So he does, after hours, in his father-in-law's house by lamplight. There he builds a new mechanism, a striker instead of a needle, a turning bolt instead of a sliding one, a seal of solid metal where the gas once escaped. He is 21. He has no factory, no fortune, no army behind him. He has only a drawing on a table. And that single drawing will outlive empires. The French look at the rifle that will dominate the next 100 years of warfare, and they tell Paul Mauser to leave. In 1867, the brothers partner with an American named Norris, and a year later they patent a new breech-loading rifle. Norris is certain France will want it to upgrade its army. So they travel to Belgium and offer the future to a government that simply shrugs. The deal collapses. The partnership dissolves. Paul returns home with a patent and not a single buyer. Most men would stop here. The Mausers do something stranger. Before leaving, they insist their rifle be handed to the Prussian military for testing. And Prussia does not shrug. Prussia takes it apart, fires it again, pits it against every rival design on the table, then tests it once more. On the 2nd of December, 1871, the verdict lands. The Mauser model of 1871 becomes the standard rifle of the German Empire, the first metallic cartridge rifle in German military history. Every musket, every needle gun, every outdated piece of iron in the largest army in Europe is suddenly obsolete. The orders that follow are staggering. Hundreds of thousands of rifles, and 2 provincials from a river town realize they need a factory the size of their sudden ambition. The boy who once crept across the floor of the King's gun factory just bought the King's gun factory and tore the King's name off the wall. The orders are flooding in, but they need scale, and the state offers the brothers a brutal bargain. Take the enormous contract, but only if you purchase the Royal Armory itself, the very building where their father stood at the bench, where Paul first walked in at 12. The price is 200,000 gulden, a fortune for two sons of a wage-earning craftsman. On the 23rd of May, 1874, the deal is done. Think about what that means. The family that once sold its hands to the Royal Forge now owns the forge outright. Workmen climb up and pry the crown's name from the stonework. In its place goes a single word: Mauser. This is the true turning point, not the patent, not the prototype, but this. The moment a craftsman's surname replaces a king's above the gate of an arsenal, the Royal Weapons Forge becomes the Mauser Weapons Factory. From here, the name stops belonging to one family and starts belonging to history. Two brothers stood on the heights above the Neckar Valley, looked down at the building their father had served his whole life, and quietly decided the world would answer to them instead. Within 20 years, a rifle built by two brothers in a German river town is killing men on every inhabited continent on Earth. By the 1880s, the Mauser name is everywhere. Turkey orders it by the hundreds of thousands. Serbia commissions its own modified version. Belgium buys in. Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, all of them line their soldiers up behind a German bolt. These nations share no language, no border, no common cause, nothing except the cold recognition that the Mauser action is the most reliable mechanism a man can carry into battle. And Paul never stops improving. He lives by one ruthless rule. Every new model must kill the one before it. Each design is lighter, faster, more accurate. Each generation renders the last one worthless overnight. By the early 1890s, he offers 27 distinct models. The bolt action is no longer a product. It has become a platform the whole world builds upon. But triumph carries a shadow. On the 13th of January, 1882, Wilhelm dies. He is 47 years old. The brother who handled the contracts, the money, the logistics, the world is simply gone. Paul is 43. Now the engineer must become the executive as well. The designer must become the businessman. And he does it alone for the next 32 years. 750 Spanish soldiers stand on a hill, and they are about to teach the most confident army in the Americas a lesson written in its own blood. The year is 1898. On the heights at San Juan, those Spaniards are armed with the Mauser model of 1893. Below them, a far larger American force begins to climb. What happens next reshapes military history forever. The Mauser fires flat and fast, fed by a 5-round clip that snaps into the rifle in a single motion. At range, it is devastating. The Americans, carrying older rifles that cannot be reloaded by clip and shoot slower and shorter, are cut down as they advance. The Americans take the hill in the end through sheer numbers and raw nerve. But every man who survives that slope walks away with the same ugly truth burned into him. The Spanish rifle was simply better than anything in the entire United States arsenal. So the Americans do the only thing they can. They ship captured Mausers home, lay them open on the workbench, and copy them piece by piece. The result is the Springfield of 1903, so close to the original that Mauser's lawyers count 7 infringed patents, and the most powerful nation in the hemisphere quietly agrees to pay royalties to a German gunmaker for the privilege of stealing his design. There is a single rifle mechanism on this planet that has been copied for more than a century and never once truly matched. Paul Mauser builds it in 1898, and he pours everything he has ever learned into it. They call it the Gewehr 98. Its heart is a system that grips the cartridge from the instant it leaves the magazine and refuses to let go until the spent case is flung clear. No jams, no fumbles, no mercy. A massive claw extractor. A bolt locked by 3 lugs instead of 2, strong enough to survive pressures no normal cartridge could ever generate. A built-in shield to guard the shooter's face if a round ever bursts. It is so sound, so brutally dependable in mud and frost and chaos that it will remain Germany's standard infantry rifle for the next 37 years. Over 100 million of these rifles and their descendants will eventually be built across the world. More than 30 nations will adopt the design or a direct copy of it. Every major bolt-action rifle that follows for the next 100 years traces its bloodline straight back to this one weapon born in a small German town. The factory's own slogan says it without flinching, still printed to this very day. Copied since 1898, never equaled. The most famous pistol Mauser ever made was built behind the boss's back, by the very men he had ordered to stop. In 1896, 3 workers in the experimental shop quietly develop a self-loading pistol that Paul Mauser himself initially wants nothing to do with. They build it anyway, in secret, refining it until the result is simply too good to refuse, and they win the old man over. The weapon is the C96, nicknamed the broom handle for its strange round wooden grip. It is one of the first truly successful semi-automatic pistols on Earth. It fires a high-velocity cartridge from a 10-round magazine loaded from the top by a stripper clip. Its wooden holster doubles as a shoulder stock, turning a pistol into a short carbine that outreaches any revolver alive. Germany's army declines to make it standard. The world adopts it regardless. More than 1 million are produced. A young Winston Churchill carries one into battle in Sudan, firing it one-handed because an injured shoulder won't let him raise a cavalry sword. Texas Rangers carry it on the Mexican border. Chinese commanders make it their sidearm of choice. Russia, Spain, and China churn out copies by the hundreds of thousands, and almost none of them ever pay a single cent. Paul Mauser dies just 5 weeks before a single gunshot in Sarajevo drags the entire world into war, and he never lives to see what his rifle is about to do. He passes in 1914, 75 years old, having spent 55 years perfecting one idea, the turning bolt, from a young soldier's sketch to the most built rifle mechanism in human history. Then the world catches fire. In the First World War, the Gewehr 98 becomes the backbone of the German infantry on every front, more than 9 million produced. The Mauser action endures what no peacetime test ever could: mud, freezing rain, gas, weeks without cleaning, and it simply keeps firing. But the empire it serves loses. The treaty that follows strangles the factory, and it survives the lean years by selling abroad and waiting. Then the restrictions fall away, rearmament begins, and the rifle evolves into the shorter Kar 98K. Between 1935 and 1945, roughly 14 million are made. By 1944, the plant holds nearly 12,000 workers, and a painful truth sits inside that number. Thousands of them are forced laborers, people brought from occupied lands against their will. The engineering was brilliant. The cost was human. The factory that armed the world was not killed by greedy executives. It was buried by the very wars its own weapons made possible. In the spring of 1945, French forces take the plant intact. They restart it, run the captured machines for their own army, then strip out the blueprints, the engineers, the tooling, and haul it all away. Then they level the place, demolishing most of the buildings and scattering its records. Yet from the rubble, 3 former Mauser engineers gather what survives and start over, building bicycle parts and precision instruments. That little company becomes Heckler & Koch, the firm behind the MP5 and the G3. The Mauser name itself is split, sold, and finally exiled to a distant Bavarian town it never came from. But here is the haunting part. The mechanism never died. Open almost any premium bolt-action rifle on Earth today, a Remington, a Winchester, a Ruger, and you are holding Paul Mauser's geometry in your hands. The design conquered the world. The company that birthed it did not. So here is what I need to know from you. If a man's invention outlives his entire empire by more than a century, did he truly win, or did he lose everything? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if stories like this give you chills, hit subscribe, because the next empire we resurrect might be one you swore you already knew.